is the changing role of academics in the digital environment. We all know that tutors and mentors are really important. But should academics be like I am here, standing in front of a classroom and teaching? Is that the best use of an academic's time? I'll give you an example. In the world today, there are 120 million students going to universities or post-secondary of any kind. The UN suggests that that has to move to 300 million within a decade. Well, there is no way we can produce that many academics, like myself, standing in front of audiences with a meaningful experience. The only way that can be done is through and online learning. So then what should the academics do? I would argue they should be building the very, very best courses they can that are so constructed that you can learn from one step to the next step to the next step with the assistance of a mentor, with the assistance maybe of your elders, with the assistance of your community. We've done a lot of work in that in Canada, and it is possible to do that. Again, it's a different role for different people in the academy, and that's going to cause some disruption. I talked a bit about courses. Well, courses are really, really important, and that's how we construct everything. But are courses really where the future of a university ought to be? Should there be learning outcomes identified that are very clear that may not require a course or may require a different type of learning? What we have to figure out is, what do we call them? How do we aggregate them into a learning experience? How do we measure the outcomes we want? Because I can guarantee you that increasingly I find, both in the United States and in Canada and in Europe, is, well, in fact, watching this globally, is that the funders of universities demand accountability and are going to demand outcomes. There's a new movement that's emerging right now, and it's headquartered to a degree in Athabasca, but also in the Open University and at some institutes in the United States, and that's called learning analytics. In a classroom today, whether it's a classroom, a live classroom, or a digital classroom, we can measure every action of every student and every learning outcome as they move from one page to the other. How long do they stay? Did they get the answers or self-studies right? In a classroom, you can measure someone's eye movements. Are they paying attention? Are they not? Did they fall asleep? There's lots of biometrics these days to measure everything. As we begin to measure the effectiveness of every learning experience, we'll start to think about what a classroom will be like, what the burdens will be on every instructor, what the burdens will be on everyone who designs a course. So there's lots of interesting things that are going on. The other thing is we currently really do believe still in the classroom model. In a digital environment, we still call the digital classroom. Well, maybe classrooms are the wrong word. Most people don't realize that the most profound learning in the last about 5 to 8 years has been through self-associating groups. If you look, for example, at a software, open source software like Moodle, or some of the problems that companies like Procter & Gamble had to solve using research, they did it through self-associating groups that come together, move apart, and cloud together, move apart. Now, how do you measure that kind of learning that happens in those groups? There's profound change happening, we know that. How do you measure it? Can you measure it, and should you measure it? Of course, I believe you should, and I believe you can. And that comes down to probably the last of the, I think I may have one, I have one more, is credentialing. What do universities really do? Well, I've argued when you really think about it, yeah, they provide learning, but sometimes students learn themselves. You learn in communities, you learn through self-associated groups. Universities provide credentialing. what we say, yes, we will guarantee that this person has a certain set of competencies. Well, some people have told me that, no, universities are an experience. Universities aren't about learning specific things. It's about building the networks of the future. It's about, you go to Harvard because you meet a certain group of people who will be with you the rest of your life. Well, can those networks also happen in a digital environment? Well, I'll guarantee you they can. Our university's had many of its programs in a digital environment for 5 years, and our alumni know each other because they work together online. They may not frequently meet each other face to face, but with Skype they're even doing that. And some of the CEOs of large Canadian and US companies in a classroom are still together because of their digital experience. So it can happen, but we've got to think about how we're going to use that networking. What does that networking look like? How do universities validate and brand the experience? And the experience is not only the experience of the engineering courses or that degree, but it's also about all the people you meet, the networks and the learning that you do for the rest of your life. So it's a new construct that is perhaps more open, more transparent than it's ever been. The other thing that we are doing in the province of Alberta, more we've found out than any other of the jurisdictions in North America, we're very, very, very aggressive in transfer credit. That means if you've got a diploma from a technical school, that may count as your first year towards an engineering degree. And that's all predetermined in a credit transfer guide. So learning is genuinely lifelong. No learning should be isolated learning. All learning should be laddered learning. And we should also encourage what we call the assessment of prior learning. Most of our students, the average age in our university, the average age is 29. Well, most of them have had at least 5, 8, 9 years of experience at something. We do an assessment. We make students go, if they wish to, develop their learning portfolios, which they give to the university. We work with them in developing them, and we determine what credits we should give to them. We also work very, very diligently at international relationships. Our university has over 453 transfer credit agreements with institutions everywhere. They're very rigorous and they're very careful. Well, the other thing that you will find in any university, you've got costs. The general cost driver in a university is about 6% per year and an inflation of about 2%. That's generally the average. Generally there's a 4% gap. Well, ultimately you have very generous governments and donors, but eventually that gap will grow and grow and grow, and eventually post-secondaries will become either more and more elitist, or they will go, I wouldn't say bankrupt because few do, but they will be under significant financial pressures. So what's needed are alternate business models. The alternate business models, if you disaggregate the value chain and reaggregate it, you could actually come to one that is at the moment maybe, I would argue, about 50% of the cost of a traditional institution. I could drive it down to 25% of the cost, but I'm not sure the experience would be quite as appropriate. What I once said to our minister, and I can say that here because my minister is in Canada, is currently we charge the same tuition fee in our state institution as the residential institutions, but we do cost a quarter as much. So we could pass the tuition on to the student at a much lower cost, or pass the saving on to the taxpayer. But you can do either one or the other. Currently we pass it on to the taxpayer. I said if our tuition fee was actually a quarter that of the other institutions, we would have a major change in habits of learning. Is that what we want as a society? Okay, no, these are all questions that we have to ask. The other is the physical plant issue. Is currently most governments, including ours, like to give buildings because buildings have ribbons to cut. Buildings are wonderful places. We just got $30 million for a new building. But I always argue that our buildings are ICTs. And we have a major ask into our government for over $90 million, of which we got the first installment, $20 million, a little while ago, to build an ICT infrastructure. We actually amortize our courses. It costs us on average, because to put a course online, totally complete, costs us in the average of $250,000 for the lowest cost course to well over $1 million for a very, very high-end health science course with many, many, many complex learning objects. You could do it even more than that. So the question I have is, how can we together reinvent a university? Well, I believe you can do it with, one, a strong vision. Our university has an incredibly strong vision. We remove all barriers to learning. That every decision we make is based on that. And of course, we do it within a quality environment. If you have a strong vision, mission, and values, you can fearlessly, without causing any kind of disruption, you can begin to reinvent the university. Well, I want to make and conclude with one very, very, got to make sure I am at the end. Yes, I am. With one proposal, which I've made to various places. What would happen if, let's say, 12 universities or 20 universities or 30 universities got together and said, we are going to build the very best, the world's best first year? Well, we all have different first years, but let's say they were the 12 very best courses that any student anywhere who is literate could start up from knowing very little and move step by step, module by module, to getting that experience. Put it online. Give it away for free. Any university that wants to use it can have it. Student who wants to sit down and learn on their own can do it. It can be translated to any language. Whatever. It's there. Okay, then the question everyone had, well, how about the credentialing? How would that work? Well, our university, the 12 universities in Canada said, fine, we'll provide the examination schedules, and if you write those exams and pass those exams, which will be based on that curriculum, fine, you can enter the second year of university in any Canadian institution or any institution that might agree to this. So it's again a different model. What do you put value on? Maybe it's the examination, the credentialing process. But then how do the professors get paid? There's all those questions. Well, you start thinking about the increase of 120 million to 300 million students. Where are they all going to end up? You're going to do it in different economic constructs. And again, I've done some very careful thinking about what the economy, the internal economy of a university might look like. Can you make money at a university, provide a very rich quality environment, and still be successful financially and be successful in a quality environment? Yes, you can. It's just going to take a lot of people to rethink the paradigm. There's one book it's called The Black Swan, and most of you have probably read it. It's a popular culture book, and it argues that every so often, every generation, something you didn't expect will happen. A black swan will come in and totally disrupt your life, your experiences, your expectations. I believe that the digital environment has got a number of black swans swimming around it. And whoever figures out how those black swans are moving and how to both improve quality of life, build the new knowledge economy, but at the same time use it to make money to again build an even better society, those will be the people who will be successful. And that is happening. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me, and after, I'll be delighted to answer any questions anyone might have.